Welcome back to Gamer in the Wardrobe, where I literally play games, video games, and TCGs in the comfort of my closet. Today we're going to be going over Set 4 Spoilers, Starter Deck War. So every set, there is a Clash kit, and each Clash kit in Alpha Clash has 2 starter decks. Those starter decks have specific cards you can only get in those decks, and we're going to be covering the Starter Deck War, which you can see here on the starting screen, but we're going to go to the next page just to kind of introduce some of those cards in the contender. So, War, the Fierce Javelineer. He's a 25 health contender, and his ability is Trigger Attack. If this contender has a weapon attached with Javelin in its name, create 1/1 red Harbinger War Minion Clash token. Once per turn, whenever you unattach a weapon from this contender, you may draw 1 card. At 10 or lower health, at the start of your turn, if this contender has a weapon attached with Javelin in its name, War Minion Clash tokens that you control get +1/+1 until the end of turn. So there's a benefit to unattaching the weapon, and below 10 health, there's a benefit to having the weapon attached on your turn and your opponent's turn. Some of the new cards you'll see over here on the other side is Gravity Javelin, Fire Javelin, War Turmoil Tyrant, and War Harbinger of Madness. And first thing I notice is this art is fire. Whoever is doing this art, thank you very much. I cannot wait to see every one of these cards in a foil. I'm very excited about that. I think my favorites is Gravity Javelin and War Harbinger of Madness. Please, please, please hear me. Please create a Harbinger for all 4 horsemen and make an alternate art for all 4 horsemen. I will pay money for those, I promise you. So will everybody else. Anyway, Gravity Javelin. So these are the starter deck new cards for Starter Deck 4 War. We're just going to dive into it so you can kind of break it. I'll break it down for you in these next couple of slides. So first one is, this is not part of the starter deck, but the Sniper Javelin actually came from the Starter Deck 3, interesting enough, which didn't actually have a War contender, but it's Sniper Javelin. It's 2 resources and 1 to attach, so 3 total. If you want to attach it in the same turn, you get it. Attached contender gets +1/+0, so effectively turning War into a 2/0 contender. And then attached contender gets Trigger Attack. You may unattach this weapon. If you do, deal 2 damage to target Clash card. If that Clash card has Flight, deal 4 damage to it instead. Pretty awesome. Gravity Javelin down here at the bottom is 1 to play, 2 to attach. Attached contender gets Trigger Attack. You may unattach this weapon. If you do, choose 2 target Clash cards you don't control. They cannot obstruct during this clash and must obstruct the next attack you declare this turn if able. Some really cool synergies I can see with this card. I'm going to break it down in the next couple of slides. And then last but not least, Fire Javelin, 2 to play, 2 to attach. Turns your contender into a 2/1 because it's a +1/+1. While the weapon is attached to your contender, War Minion Clash tokens you control get triggered feat. Deal 1 damage to target Clash card. At the end of your turn, it automatically unattaches itself. Okay, so I'm going to go from my least favorite to my favorite. Fire Javelin, I personally think is going to be the weakest. I could be wrong. I'm just not a strong believer. I think it's expensive. It's cost 2 to play and 2 to attach. It does buff my contender to a 2/1, which is really nice. But you know, when my minion tokens die, I deal 1 damage to target Clash card. I guess the thought would be is like if I kill a lot of my minions in a primary phase, I can maybe clear a lot of stuff. But if I just like swing with a minion and it dies, and I deal a damage, I don't really, I kind of get it, but I guess I need to see it. I need to fiddle around with it. The perks that I have is it's searchable. It unattaches at the end of the turn, which means I get to draw, but then I would need to reattach it again for 2 red at the start of my next turn. It synergizes well with minion tokens, and then my contender becomes a 2/1 until the end of the turn. So again, I think there's going to be a place for it. Maybe I'm overthinking this, because like my thought is like there is a card that I'm going to talk about that kind of wipes my board, and I guess in that theory it would kill all of my minion tokens, and then I could just deal a bunch of damage And I guess another thought is like if I swing at a clash card with a minion and my minion's defeated and then it deals 1 damage to it after the effect, will that be enough to actually be effective to clear boards and kill stuff? So I'm still a little on the fence with this one, but I'm excited to try it out, that's for sure. Next one is the Sniper Javelin. It's searchable. So we have a card that searches for javelins. That's that Harbinger, or the war riding the horse. It is a searchable card. It's 1 red resource to attach, so cheap to attach. And it has a double trigger attack synergy, which I really like. So if you go back to the Contender, trigger attack. If I have a Javelin, I create a 1/1 token. And then also the Sniper Javelin says trigger attack. You may unattach this weapon. If you do, deal 2 damage. So in theory, I'm swinging with my War Contender. As I trigger that attack, I create a 1/1 mini token, and then I can unattach it, throw the Javelin at something for 2 damage if it's a ground unit, or for 4 damage if it's a flight unit, which is awesome. And then I also draw a card because I'm unattaching the weapon. So there's really cool synergies. It's creating a token, dealing damage outside of like what I'm actually swinging at. I can throw it somewhere else or at the target, I believe. And then on top of that, I'm drawing a card. So it's amazing in its flight. I can draw before the end of my turn. My Contender's a 2/0, and it has the opportunity to deal non-clash damage because I'm throwing that Javelin out. So I think this could be really, really strong. But again, I need to fiddle with it a little bit. We are going to go to my favorite one. So this is the one that I think I'm going to have the most fun with. I think it has the most board manipulation, and you can play around it the most. It's searchable by the Harbinger because it has Javelin in the name. Again, it has the triple trigger. Well, no, it's a double trigger in this one because it doesn't unattach itself. Oh, wait, no, it does. So it's a triple trigger, right? So I swing with my Contender. I create a 1/1 token because I have a Javelin attached. My trigger attack for the Javelin is you may unattach this weapon. If you do, choose 2 target clash cards you don't control. They cannot obstruct during this clash and must obstruct the next attack you declare. And then on top of that, I will draw a card because now the Javelin's becoming unattached. So I think this is going to be extremely powerful, especially when it comes to board control. And I'll explain a couple of reasons in this next slide. Here's a couple of thoughts that I immediately have. Conquest Sash. Whenever your Contender deals clash damage to an opponent Contender, you may engage this card and you can draw 1 card. So hypothetically, I have Conquest Sash on the board. It's not attached to my Contender. It's just an accessory. I have Gravity Javelin attached to my Contender. You have 2 clash cards. Let's say they're active, right? So you're preparing for a block, right? But Gravity Javelin, when I attack, I can say those 2 cards can't obstruct me, right? I unattached Gravity Javelin, I draw a card, and then also with the trigger attack, I create a 1/1 token, and then when my War Contender hits your Contender, I draw another card from Conquest Sash. So I just created a 1/1 token, had 2 of your guys not obstruct me, and drew 2 cards in that one exchange. On top of that, here's another thought. And this is where we start to get a little bit more brainstorming and deck building, deck crafting. But Lord Krung is necrotic, which is kind of like Death Touch, and I'll explain that in a different video. But imagine it like Death Touch, right? So I have Gravity Javelin attached to my Contender, Conquest Sash on the board, and Lord Krung on the board. And let's just say hypothetically I have the Totem of the War Chief, which is attached to my Krung. Okay, so it's this is a weird scenario, but or it's not a weird scenario. It's a doable scenario because everything's like 1 or 2 cost. But I swing with my Contender. I create a 1/1 token. I unattach the Javelin, so you cannot obstruct my Contender. I draw a card from my Contender ability for unattaching the Javelin, and then my Contender hits your Contender, and I draw another card because Conquest Sash engages from that combat. And then I swing with Lord Krung, and the 2 that I just said couldn't obstruct now have to obstruct the next attack, which would be Lord Krung, who is necrotic. And then hypothetically, if the Totem of the War Chief is attached to it, it's undisputed, which means it cannot be killed in combat, right? So I just cleared 2 units, my Krung survives, I drew 2 cards, I created a 1/1 token, and guess what I'm going to do the next turn? I'm going to reattach that Javelin, baby, and we're going to do it all again. So I'm really excited about the Gravity Javelin. I think it's going to be really cool. And this is just kind of like one scenario I came up in my head with really quick. A couple of Clashgrounds that I think are going to really benefit War. I think War at the moment, at least from what I can see, is really kind of pulling to like a red black, a red white, or a red black white kind of contender. Just because that's where a lot of the Harbingers tend to play. That's where a lot of the Earth Bardaga plays, which there are some in this set. I believe Bardagas and Worlds are going to have some effects on Clash cards, and that's where I just think it synergizes the best. So a couple of these. Warzone, it benefits Harbingers, gives all Harbingers +1/+0, so every token I create, every Clash card I typically play with this contender is going to be a Harbinger, and then at the end of my turn I can restand a Harbinger, which is really good. And then it also has the counterplay, which when you play a Clash Zone, it kicks your Clash Zone while kicking itself, so really strong card in this deck. Another one is Frontline, which is right below Warzone. Again, benefiting Harbingers, and then it restands a unit when it comes in, or readies a unit when it comes into play, which I think could be really strong with the right Clash cards and the right color combo. I added Remote Cave just because there is almost no downside to having Harbingers. And again, with that Krung example, if I'm playing some discarded, Remote Cave could be a really, really strong Clashground with War, because I'm buffing discarded, and then I'm not really running any alphas or rogues. So that's something you could probably fiddle around with a little bit. Spatial Gateway is really good when it comes to Harbingers. Trigger Defeat, I can pay one resource and return it to my hand instead of Oblivion, but it only works with Harbingers, which you're going to hear that word a lot, because that's what War does. He's a Harbinger, and he tends to synergize well with Harbingers. Somewhere in San Francisco is just a cheap one-drop Clashground. Gives my contender +1/+0. Again, if I'm doing this correctly, I'm imagining this War contender is going to swing every turn. So if I'm going to swing every turn, I'd rather be swinging with 2 or 3 or 4 attack than 1 or 2. So this is going to buff my contender, and then when it gets kicked from the field, it draws a card, which is nice. And then lastly, the Wasteland. If I want to dip into the green pool, I think this could have some really cool synergies with taking cards off of the field in the primary phase and replaying them, whether it's creating more tokens, dealing more damage, putting stat reductions on opponent cards, things like that. But I think that could potentially play a little well in this, but I didn't really dive too much into that because, I think War is going to be mostly in the red, black, white. Maybe red-green if you want to go Pestilence package, but there's still a lot of cards we're waiting to see. So now, those are 6 Clashgrounds I recommend, but the number one Clashground I do recommend is the next one, okay? And this is a really, really cool card, I think, because it works on weapons and contender weapons, and that's Siberia, okay? Attached costs of red weapons are reduced by 1 red pip. So Sniper Javelin, Gravity Javelin, Fire Javelin, they're all reduced by 1 red pip. So now it doesn't cost me anything to reattach Sniper Javelin. So I can just throw it next turn, attach it for free, throw it next turn, attach it for free. Insane. Gravity Javelin and Fire Javelin now only cost 1 to attach, which is going to be extremely valuable if I'm playing this game correctly. Couple other things. Weber's Binoculars. Whenever the attached Clash card, so this is one I would attach to a Clash card, not my contender. Whenever they attack, I may engage the Weber's Binoculars, and if I do, I get to look at the top 3 cards of my deck. I may reveal an accessory or Clash card with an initial resource cost of 2 or less from among them and put that card into my hand. So this is going to be a great way to find more Javelins, more resources, more accessories, more low-cost Clash cards to keep my hand strength strong and my card advantage up. And again, it's free. With Siberia on the board, it's free to play. Frag Grenade's one that I kind of threw in here just as kind of a fun little gimmicky one. But again, if it's only 1 to get out and 0 to attach, I might play it because that's going to prevent my opponent from swinging a lot of times because it's going to deal damage to them if they do. And then also we have Heavy Metal. Whenever the attached Clash card attacks, you may engage this card. If you do, reveal the top card of your deck. If that card is an accessory, put it into your hand. If not, deal 1 damage to target contender you don't control. So I can deal damage to their contender if it's not an accessory, and if it is an accessory, I just bring it right into my hand. And, if I'm running a couple of javelins, a couple of pieces of weaponry to attach to my guys, this might not be a bad addition to add to the hand if you're or your contender war. The other two cards, sorry, this is a little bit pixelated, but Harbinger of Madness Breakthrough, which is awesome. Trigger enter, you may send one war minion clash token to Oblivion. If you do, search your deck for a red contender weapon and reveal it. Shuffle your deck, then put that card on top. So if you remember, I said how all these javelins are searchable, searchable, searchable. That's because you're going to be running the Harbinger of Madness. And then when it attacks, this card gets +1/+0 for each war minion clash token that was defeated or sent to Oblivion this turn. So in theory, if I trigger enter and I do the searchable effect, I'm going to have a minion on board. This is a 4/3 automatically because I've already sent one minion to the grave. The way I'm understanding this war is it's going to be a lot of token generation. A lot of the cards are going to benefit from tokens being on the board, and the tokens are going to benefit from the clash cards you're playing. So I really like this card, and this is one of the ones where, I mean, look at that art. The horse, and they have another one for the Pestilence. I really hope they get one for Death and Conquest, and you can have all 4 horsemen. That would be awesome. And then the other new card is War Turmoil Tyrant. It's a 3-cost 2-pip. Observant means when it enters the field, it cannot attack immediately. So if you're new to this game, every card has haste. Every card, when it enters the field, can attack. There's no summoning sickness, except if they have the word Observant. And this is a 3-drop, trigger enter, clash tokens you control get +0/+1 until end of turn. So a 3-drop, 3/3 with a benefit to all of my clash tokens. Not bad. Again, I haven't really played a lot with the tokens. I've done it a little bit, but this is finally a package where it seems like tokens may be relevant, and a deck that revolves around them might actually be worthy. And then these are just a couple of other cards that I think if I were going to run it today with the clash cards available, I'd probably run a red-black or red-black-white war deck here. I would attach the javelins. I'd have the harbingers and some of the token generation. But you can kind of see the curve here in some of the cards. The War Intensifier is a 7-drop, and it gives +1/+1 to all harbinger cards. And then when it attacks, it creates a 1/1 red war token. That's the card that's right over here. And then we'll just kind of go down. This is a War Battle Paragon 6-drop. This card gets Undisputed as long as you control 3 or more clash tokens. Undisputed, again, means if I attack something, I cannot die. I can die on my opponent's turn. I can die by effects, but I cannot die in a clash. So if my opponent has like a really big body on board that's 6 defense, I can hit this and I will not die, even if it has 4 attack, because I have Undisputed. Bardagan Warhorn, I think, is going to be an auto-include in this deck. Trigger enter, it creates a 1/1 war token, and then at the end of your turn, if the portal's open, create a 1/1 token. So in theory, every turn the portal's open, at the end of my turn, it's going to create another 1/1 token. So my opponent's either going to have to use stuff to close the portal, or I'm just going to keep getting tokens. So this could really, really snowball with a lot of the token generation and a lot of the buffs you can do to your tokens now with this contender. Favorable outcome is removal. Deals 2 damage to clash card, and if the clash card is defeated by that, I create a token. This is the Unrivaled, which is kind of like the epic or the legendary card. Unrivaled means you can only have 1 Unrivaled card in your deck. And this one's just a really, really good one. Second Horseman, deal 3 damage when it enters the field to target contender or clash card. And then when it attacks, they have to send a clash card to Oblivion. If they don't, it deals 2 damage to that player's contender as well. So in theory, it hits the board, deals 3 damage to something, swings, deals 4 damage to something, and then you also have to send the card away to Oblivion, or it's going to deal another 2 damage to your contender. So extremely strong card. And that kind of goes back to that Wasteland card, where you could play this out and then pull it back into your hand, and if you're at 8 resources, play it again, or play it the next turn and do the same thing. So that's kind of where the green potentially can come in, is some of these cards are extremely strong. Crimson Scales. Crimson Scales is exclusive. Unrivaled means you can only have 1 Unrivaled card in your deck. Exclusive means you can have 4 of that card in your deck, but you can only have 1 on the field at a time. And this just says once per turn during your primary phase, you may engage this card and deal 1 damage to target Clash card. If that Clash card is defeated by this effect, you can deal 2 damage to another Clash card, 1 damage to target contender, or draw a card. Really good at keeping card advantage, keeping momentum, removal, and you can use it on your own guys. Like if you have a 1/1 token out, you can hit your token to deal 2 to one of their tokens or one of their Clash cards. You can hit your token to draw a card, so on and so forth, right? War Strifebringer, I think this is probably one of the best war cards. Trigger enter, you can activate the portal, then create 2 1/1 war tokens. Just amazing. And then the other effect is trigger attack. If the portal is open, which you probably opened it by playing this card, you may engage any number of Clash tokens you control. If you do, until end of turn, this card gets breakthrough and +1 for each Clash token you've engaged with this effect. So hypothetically, turn 3, I play Bardagan Warhorn right over here. I create a 1/1 token, and the portal's open. At the end of my turn, I create another 1/1 token. And then on turn 4, they don't die. I play War Strifebringer, creating 2 more tokens. So now I have 4 tokens on the board, and the portal's open because I opened it by playing Strifebringer, and now I'm swinging for 7 with breakthrough. So it can be really, really strong. And then on top of that, after I do the swing, I ping one of my tokens to kill it with Crimson Scales to draw a card or deal 2 damage somewhere, so on and so forth. So you can kind of see how the red synergies are going to work pretty good together. And then these are just, again, with the black, the Harbingers, it's just strong. A lot of these Clashgrounds we talked about are Harbinger-centric Clashgrounds. So having this death package is really good because they're Harbingers. This is really good because you can send minions to Oblivion. You can send your own minions to Oblivion. You can target your opponent's Clash cards and send them to Oblivion when it enters. And then it gets a buff from that. This one is also extremely good. Again, synergizing with the Harbingers. At the start of your turn, if the portal's open, you may put target Clash card with an initial resource cost of 3 or less from your Oblivion into the Clash zone. If that card is a Harbinger Clash card, it gets +2/+2 and necrotic. Like, think about this for a second, right? We have Gravity Javelin, right? Gravity Javelin on board, which is attach contender, trigger attack. You may unattach this weapon. If you do, choose 2 target Clash cards, and they that I don't control, and they can't block when I swing with this, but they have to block the next turn. Well, if I pull out a Harbinger on my turn with death, it has necrotic +2/+2. So I can wipe their board with that if I have Gravity Javelin, right? So extremely strong. And then the last one that I think is really, really cool is Devourer of Souls. And I want to read this one because this one you don't really see a lot of play of right now. But it's trigger attack. You may send any number of Clash cards you control to Oblivion. If you do, this card gets +2/+0 until end of turn for each Clash card sent to Oblivion this way. If 2 or more Clash cards were sent to Oblivion by this effect, this card also gets breakthrough until the end of turn. So, let's go back to the Strifebringer example, right? I played the Warhorn, I played the Strifebringer, I have 4 war tokens on the board, whatever it is, so on and so forth. And then on turn 5, after I did all that, I played the Devourer of Souls, and and maybe this is what I do. The next turn, I swing with War Strifebringer, engaging all 4 tokens, doing 7 damage with breakthrough, and then I play Devourer of Souls, and I just send all 4 of those war tokens that I just used to Oblivion to turn this into an 8/2 with breakthrough. I don't know. I think it could be really, really cool and really, really synergistic. So look out for this card with this contender because I think it could be really, really good. And then lastly, these are a couple of new cards, a couple of the ones that are coming out in set 4. Again, Ballistic Shield's a weapon, so it's just, if I have Siberia on the field, it's free to attach, and my card gets Safeguard. Safeguard, I believe, is where the stats cannot be reduced, so you cannot get rid of the character with stat reduction or specific removal. I Am Demise is a 3-cost 2 black pip. Since this would be in a war contender, the first sentence doesn't apply, but the next one is send target Clash card you control, so one of my war tokens to Oblivion. If you do, send target Clash card you don't control to Oblivion. That's it. So I can send a 1/1 to my Oblivion and get rid of a 6/6. And on top of that, if the portal is open, which it should be if I'm playing this deck properly, you may put a Clash card without Unrivaled from Oblivion into the Clash Zone engaged. If you do, your contender loses health equal to that card's initial resource cost. So in theory, right, I play this card. Let's say War Strifebringer, or even something crazier, the Death Stalker, or let's just do the Endbringer, the Death Endbringer. I know it's six resources. I play I Am Demise, send a War token to Oblivion, send one of their cards to Oblivion, and then I'm going to bring out Deathbringer for 6, right back onto the Clash Zone engaged. Okay, I just took 6 damage, it's back onto the Clash Zone, it's engaged, but when it's the start of my opponent's turn, that opponent must send 1 Clash card they control to Oblivion. So you can see there could be really, really cool synergies with this and the Harbingers and some of the new cards that are coming out. And then lastly, I added Krung's Dominion, mostly because, A, you can search your deck for a discarded Clash card and put it into your Oblivion, then shuffle your deck. That's going to work well with some of the stuff we do in our Oblivion. And then if the portal is open, discarded Clash cards can't lose abilities, which is fine. But the main thing is Bardaga Clash cards get -1/+1. So this is a card, and this is the first we're seeing it, that is beneficial based on the planet, right? So if you look down here, Bardaga. So all of these cards are going to get a -1/+1. So if I want to be defensive or buff my defense for a turn, I can play this and it's going to work in this deck. And I wanted to throw it in here because it's a new card, so why not, right? So yeah, that's what I got. That's the starter deck war. I hope you guys are still listening, and I would love to know your thoughts. What are your thoughts? What do you think? What would you run? What was something I maybe missed? And then don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to try to come out with more content as we move on and get closer to the release date. So Set 4 is coming out in November. Genesis returns. This is going to be the War Clash Kit Set 4. And again, I appreciate you guys watching. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.